So, Hamza, I'd have to slightly disagree with your point about Henderson. I think he does cover lots of ground. He runs himself into the ground, and I think he's improved the strategic side of his game in terms of when he runs and how he runs, the timing of his running, right? If you look at the stats as well, in terms of the win ratio of England when they play with Henderson or Liverpool when they play with Henderson, it's much higher. We can go back to Brendan Rodgers' era as well. I think the turning point was when Henderson got sent off. I think it was against City in the last moments of the game, and he missed the remaining three games. And I know we can't talk in ifs and buts, but I think if he was on the pitch, it would have been a different story, right? Another thing is that uh, because of Liverpool's style, right? Attacking fullbacks, high and wide, a front three that's always looking for balls in behind. He's so important to act as a cover to recover the ball again and sustain our attacks. And I think there's consistency there. I agree that there might not be consistency in terms of his passing ability and his penetrative through balls, but in terms of his ability to recover possession for us and sustain attacks, I think that's an invaluable quality he has that not many players I feel have that, in the league. So
Yeah, the discipline in terms of out of possession and the
yeah,
responsibility, and I do agree.
and
On top of it is leadership.
yeah, one more thing I would add, Hamza, if you look at even the big games, right, against Barcelona, the comeback against Abi recently against Atleti. I know we lost that game. I still don't know how we lost that game, but this guy Henderson sets the tone from the start. I feel he's the guy when he's standing in the tunnel, when he gets on the pitch, he does set that tone, along with Van Dijk, etc. But in the middle of the park, he is that leader that people follow and they kind of feed off his energy and feed off his mentality. So I see your point, but that's my
No, I think it's a very fair point that you've raised, and frankly, if I've been you could have made me eat my words, because I think the last few games that Henderson's been out, we've actually not been playing well, right? And that's the first time I actually realized that Henderson is more important than I genuinely give him credit for, right? But I think what you just said earlier is what I feel like that's the reason that I get a little flustered with Henderson being there. You see, uh, when you Henderson's the captain of the team, right? Forever when we played football and generally watch football, usually your best player is the captain, right? And in Henderson's case, that's not true, right? So to be a good leader, usually what happens is I've noticed so many times when Henderson's trying to give someone else shit, and they kind of turn around and say, well, it was a shit pass, right? As opposed to maybe when Gerrard would have done it, or even Van Dijk does it, there's a tendency of people really following those people. That's one point that I want to make, right? Which again is not important, because in football, captains are not that as important as maybe in cricket, right? But coming back to your point, I completely agree that given how Klopp plays with the fullbacks kind of bombing in, and then hence the midfield trio, at least two of them, Fabinho and Henderson, and even Gini, they do the dirty work, right? Like they pick out the spaces where, like on a counter attack, they can break play up and then contain the team, and then again like go back on the attack. But think about it, that this is one of the criticisms of Klopp, which by the way people have not picked up on yet, because it's the plan A has always worked, but there is no plan B. So example, like if the fullbacks bombing on does not work, and you need your midfielders to step in to do that little bit of extra kind of like that beautiful ball inside the box or whatever, Henderson hasn't been able to do that. I mean, I honestly, you're throwing stats at me, I'll throw a stat at you. Like midfield, like I can guarantee you, I don't know the number, but how many goals has Henderson scored as a central midfielder, man? And he's not a holding midfielder. I'm not talking about when he was playing holding midfield, but how many goals has he scored? Like for a central midfielder, like I think his goals to games ratio is probably the worst of any. And you can argue and say that's not his job, but I mean really, like I'm being overly critical that we should be scoring more goals and we should shut out games much better. But I mean, what if like you wanted to keep your fullbacks like at the back, change the system, play plan B, where you get your midfields to start playing more attacking? The Henderson cannot be. He's not a versatile player. Is my argument.
How many goals has Fernandinho scored? How many goals does
But Fernandinho plays as a holding midfielder.
Henderson has played more than half of his career as a holding midfield player. Only recently, when we read,
Fabinho, after Fabinho came in, how many goals has he scored?
I think we must agree majority of his role has been playing holding midfielder. If you look at his entire career, only when abhi jo news aaya tha कि he knocked on Klopp's door and said, please let me play try me as an attacking midfielder. And then he started to play in a more attacking midfield role.
Man, the last 2 seasons, Fabinho has been playing that role. Henderson hasn't, only when Fabinho has been injured, right?
No, but then they were playing double pivot as well. No?
Listen, listen, I completely agree with you. I will always say that when the chips are down, you find a scapegoat, and Henderson has become a scapegoat for fans generally. I completely agree that I think he gets a lot of criticism, and like I said, like last few games, I've realized that he's a much more important player than we think he is, because for a football fan, like you want to, and this is where I take all the criticism myself, saying that we always attribute certain things to players and say, well, they're good or bad, right? For example, like if he can't make that pass, or if he's not making like this crazy pass, or scoring a specific goal, or doing certain things, he's not a good player. Like sometimes when people keep it simple, they're not considered as good, right? And I agree with that's the I guess myopia, or whatever you want to call it. Like we think from a certain perspective that, if Ronaldinho is great because he could do this skill, right?
We're also very quick, like you said earlier in the interview, that we're fickle, fans are fickle for managers as well, right? We immediately put them in a box, right? Mourinho, a defensive coach, Pep Guardiola, attacking coach. I think it's a lot more complex than that. And in terms of Henderson, very early on in his career, he got pigeonholed into a player that's not very good at his passing ability, who's not the most comfortable on the ball. But I feel if you look at the last 6 years, 7 years, this guy has improved drastically in his passing range. He's improved drastically in his tactical understanding of the game. And people are still stuck in that, Henderson can just run around and just play the 5-yard John Obi Mikel type of game. I think we're not giving enough credit to his versatility and his improvement over the last 6-7 years. Yeah, there's an argument to be made. Is he good enough for the top team in the world? Real Madrid, Barcelona. But for Liverpool's model, for Liverpool's style of play, profile, I think he's very, very vital.
No, absolutely. Fair enough. Like I said, that this could be argued both ways, and you absolutely have a very strong argument when you say that he is, like, for Liverpool, like right now in this setup, like he's a very important player, right? And I think like us fans, most Liverpool fans, the reason why they get flustered with Henderson is because if you remember, Henderson was brought in as the long-term replacement of Gerrard. He was the guy. And he always has that chip on his shoulder because he never lived up to that billing. And people did. And I feel like we've been very unfair to the guy, because he's actually genuinely a very good guy. If you read stuff like off-field stuff that he does, rallying people even during these COVID times, he's actually genuinely a very good, very humble, very like simple guy. He never comes out and says, I'm great, I'm good, whatever. He gets about his, and that's, exactly, as opposed to Lovren, right? So definitely, like, people would hate Lovren more than maybe Hendo, and fans are fickle, right? You got to take it with a pinch of salt, that when the chips are down, you're not winning a game, you find the most average player and find a mistake. So Henderson's mistakes are definitely exaggerated, as opposed to maybe if Bobby did that, or someone else did it, you'd be like, okay, that's fine. But yeah, so Henderson gets a lot of stick because of that. But yeah, fair point.
So, Amy, taking this a little further, question not from Liverpool. Who do you think is the best manager in the world, and why?
Klopp.
Oh, here we go again. So we might as well.
And why? Because I'll tell you, no one can argue that in terms of, like, when you say best manager in the world, and we keep it very simple, it's about how the team is playing, right? The team that they're managing right now is playing, and obviously the trophies they win, right? So let's keep it simple. Let's not get into details like, okay, what about managers who were lower, managing lower teams, haven't won anything, but they played really well, like been playing really good football. For example, Nunes, right, at Wolves. I think he's a great manager. Like, the football that he gets his team to play, he can beat any team on their day. But like, talking about just there right now, two managers that really stand out, right? it's Pep and it's Klopp. That's what whenever when you talk about the top three, these two will always be in the top three, at least in the current times, right? So out of these two, if I were to pick one, the reason why I pick Klopp is that Pep has always gotten unlimited amount of resources to build a team. Usually he's inherited like world class teams, and like look at the clubs that he's managed. He hasn't really built a team from ground up. Klopp has done that with Dortmund, right? He has done that with Liverpool. He inherited a team that was declining, or finished sixth or something in the season, kind of all over the place. And look where we are today. And he, his belief was insane. Like when he came in, he said, people asked him, when are you going to win the title? And he said 3 to 4 years. That's unbelievable. Any fan, like I literally was like, please don't say that. Okay, he's probably new to England. He shouldn't have. He does not understand. Liverpool not going to win the title. We haven't won it in 30 years. This team, there's no way we're not going to. Brendan's that season was just like a one-off.
Joe Allen, man, we could do it with Joe. We could
Exactly,
do it with
right.
Joe.
Exactly. Why? So that's why for me, it's like a manager, given the resources that he's had, the team that he's built. I mean, Sheikh, seriously, forget being a Liverpool fan, right? Like some of the games, like if you analyze the games, like it's unbelievable to set up a team and get that much out of it. Like the Liverpool Barca game will forever in memory, like stick out as one of the best, like tactically, the team, like Bobby wasn't playing, Salah was out,
Salah
like
wasn't
to
playing.
team and beat a team like Barca 4-0, right? It's just like it's unbelievable, man. And as a football coach, you can understand like how he set up the team, like how you needed to find the right balance to not get one goal on the counter and you would have to score 5. It was just crazy. They played. It was 90 minutes of like unbelievable football, like so well drilled and so well planned that. Find me another example of that. Any of Pep's games. Find me one example where he's been able to do that or put in that situation. Never. His teams have never been like maybe 3 goals down, have to score 4 unanswered goals against a team like Barca with Messi, etc. So for me, definitely, I think right now he is the best manager in the world.
So
After KK.
just to wrap up, Hami, thank you again for your time, and it's been a wonderful chatting with you. But just to wrap up, your most memorable footballing experience, and 2-part question: what do you love most about the beautiful game of football?
Memorable playing wise, watching wise, is it
anything? Your memorable football
Any
experience. It could be
experience.
anything.
So definitely watching wise, I think it was last year. I flew into Liverpool to watch the quarterfinals of the Champions League, Liverpool Man City. And honestly, man, it was like I've gone around the world. I've watched the last 3-4 World Cups, been everywhere, watched so many games, been to Anfield quite a few times. But by far, the Liverpool Man City game was the best football game I've seen live. The atmosphere was insane. They were singing that Ale 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 song non-stop. People were standing. They didn't even sit. And it was just the atmosphere, the feeling that you get, right? Like the goosebumps for 90 minutes, literally. It was just unbelievable. Like that is the best feeling in the world. It trumps everything, literally. Like, people think like, who would pay like $2,000 out of their pocket to go and pay, watch a football game? Believe you me, when you're there and you actually support that team and it plays out the way it plays out against a team like Man City. And, I still remember watching Ox score, Salah score, and pandemonium, man. Like the entire stadium, it's so vivid. Like these are memories. Like, I mean, you could sit back one day and just think like I've lived my life, right? So
I honestly feel only like sport can give you those kind of emotions, right? Like it's an art form, right? It's an art form. And when else do you see human beings, grown adults, as adults, right, who are crying or, that goal, and they're just, going
Jumping with
crazy,
joy.
jumping with
Imagine, like I said, that when they score and the next person you see who you have no idea who that guy is, never met in your life, and you hug them and you're jumping, right?
Amazing.
Like imagine, like it could be white, brown, yellow. They don't at that moment, they forget everything. They forget race, culture, a class, and it's just like pure emotion coming out. 2 people just like rejoicing that moment, and it's just crazy, man. So for me, definitely,
Not to make this a philosophical discussion, but I do think that the quality of your emotion is proportional to the quality of your life, right? So the
Yeah,
quality of emotions you feel is directly proportional to how your experience of life. And yeah, I mean, if you can
yeah,
experience that week in, week out at Anfield, or just sitting in your living room and watching Salah bend it into the far post, it just improves
absolutely.
your quality of life.
Man, like I think you would understand this because we've, played football, watched football so many times over the years that that's what keeps us, at least for me, and I know for all of you guys, it keeps us alive. With all the problems in our life, etc., it's like your one solution is let's just go on the pitch and kick the ball around a little bit. I just need to unwind, and that's our medicine. That's something that like that's our escape. It's watching, playing, and even like on bad days when you're losing, it's the emotion coming out. Your body needs to like express, right? And for me, like football allows us to express our emotions in such a beautiful way, be it frustration, be it happiness. It's just this constant to and fro, right? That last minute goal, and you're just jumping on the bed like a 41-year-old, and your kid looks at you and thinks like you're crazy, and you don't care, and you just don't care, right? You're like, I don't care. You're like all kinds of profane stuff's coming out of your mouth, and your wife's giving you because your kids are sitting there.
I'm not
Like,
sure
so
how you celebrate, man. That's not
yeah,
how
well,
I
I'm telling you, man. I mean, I've woken up the neighborhood. I remember in 2005 when Liverpool scored the 3 goals, and my mom came out and said, "Are you mad?" It was like I think 1 or 2 in the morning. So yeah, man. I mean, I just can't. It's so difficult to tell you like how football makes you feel. Like only people who've experienced it can really share that emotion and understand what we're saying. But yeah, so I think that also answers your second question. That
Yeah.
like for me, football has given me a lot, right? It's just unbelievable. Like the friends that I've made, the relationships, the banter. I mean, it's such a significant part of my life that I always tell people, and they might not take that seriously, but for me, life has always been football, and everything else has been secondary.
Yeah,
Even though
it
I'm not a
revolves
professional,
around it.
I'm not a professional football player, and yes, I'm a PFF chairman right now, NC chairman right now. But before this, I was doing a regular sort of private equity job that I was doing. But it was always football always took first sort of priority, and I managed everything around that, right? Like my work, I would schedule around it because without it, I feel I can't be really good at my work. I can't be very good at home. Look at times right now. We've been very flustered because I haven't been able to watch or play football, and that hasn't happened like ever. Like I don't remember like if that's ever happened
Yeah,
before.
bar the summers where there's no Copa America or Euro, this is the first
But we
time
would
that
we would be able to play,
Play.
right?
Yeah.
Or we'd be able to play. So there's at least some form of football you're getting. You're getting some dose of football. Like this is the like at this time when you have no football, like playing or watching wise, like it just like you. That's when you realize how important the sport is for us. At least for me personally. So yeah, man. I mean, it's just it's everything.
Great, Hamza. Thank you so much for coming on the Karachi United Football Show, and
Thanks for
all the
having me, guys.
best.
This was
All
great.
the best, Vinny. Thank
Yeah,
you.
thanks, bud. Thanks,
Thanks.
guys.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.
as well. Thank you.